Oh,
Hello. So, obviously there's a lot about family dynamics, parent-child relationship, that kind of thing. Um, I guess, some of the writing about like kind of like in-betweens, like bisexuality, let's say as an in-between. There's really interesting progression of like the mother not asking questions about the boyfriend,
yeah.
the dog first. And obviously that priority list, or that list of who
Mhm.
asking about first, obviously could be extremely painful. um and then I believe it was something about like about bringing food, and just I guess ways of, you could look at it as like, doesn't know how to express herself maybe in that way, but these are expressions of love, maybe not verbally, but these are expressions of love. What does he like to eat, and we're getting his favorite type of food.
Mhm.
I guess how much of a balance between like hurtful and I want to hear it said. I
Yeah.
want to hear it said, how is he? Give him a hug, give him a kiss, how are you?
Mhm.
Versus like, she's doing her best. She's these are
Mhm.
expressions, these are tokens of love. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think in the writing and also in life, I go back and forth on that all the time.
Hmm.
It's not like, yeah, I don't have a very settled answer about it. And I think that's a big part of why I write about this subject, because I don't have the answers.
Mm.
And I have really conflicting emotions about our relationship. Um, yeah, where sometimes, just as you put it, I feel like I want, yeah, more to be expressed and really verbalized and affirmed,
Mm.
rather than just tolerated,
Right.
um, but actually embraced. And then there are other times where I see how, um, she does express care and affection in her own ways,
Hmm.
right? And that's, I think, a common struggle among, children and parents, whether the issue is around sexuality or something else,
Hmm.
where, the ways in which someone loves you may not be the way that you would like them to.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that can be, yeah, that can be really hard. Um, and it's like, oh, to what degree do you try to accept that, these are the ways that they do love you?
Hmm.
And in what ways do you kind of push or try to educate or ask for other ways?
Hmm.
Um, and and at the same time, it sucks to feel like you have to ask or push
Mm.
for those things that sometimes seem really basic. And yeah, to feel like, oh, wanting more is, um, it's like somehow you're being ungrateful, right?
Mm.
To like what you do receive. But
Mm.
if it's not enough, it's not enough.
Right.
Um, so yeah, there are a lot of very different emotions.
Well, I mean, I appreciate you. I mean, it's obviously very personal. I appreciate putting it on the page and sharing it with me here, with us here. And then you put that alongside like your boyfriend, saying, "Call your mom." Like he's the one saying, "Call your mom, call your
Yeah.
mom." There's just something about that, like
Mhm,
that selflessness that, I mean, that's
mhm.
that's love. And even like the grackles seem to be saying that,
Yeah.
right? And that
Well,
annoying voice they have.
ultimately, especially from the grackles, like,
Mm.
ultimately, that's an internal voice,
Sure. Are you
right, that
sure?
I'm
Are you sure though?
turning into metaphor. Well, maybe, I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
what they're saying when they're loud shrieks. So
Huh.
maybe they are, yeah,
Yeah.
encouraging.
But yeah, just ideas of and things that are left unsaid. That to me really spoke to me. Ironically, that it spoke to me that they're left unsaid. Things like a small book of questions. Who was responsible for my mother's suffering?
Yeah.
And one of the lines was, "I'm afraid of you because of you."
Mhm.
but a lot of those were like left unsaid. Again,
Mhm.
that interior voice. Um, Doctor's note. And there's a quote about mourning but not something. I'm paraphrasing here: mourning him but not loving him through the ice cream ritual.
Oh yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
Could you explain that a little bit? This idea of mourning but not loving, and who the hymn refers to, and
Where is that?
that's from Doctor's Note.
Mhm. Oh yeah, the last part of it.
Mm-hmm. This idea of
Yeah, they will
mourning
think of
him but
him
not
so
loving.
fondly,
Yeah.
while sharing a bowl of strawberry ice cream, the last thing they remember him loving. Yeah. Um, yeah, part of what I'm getting at there is like the refusal of the parents to learn about the speaker's life, my life,
Mm.
past a certain point. It's like they want to hold on to the kind of like innocent child
Mm-hmm.
version of me, um, instead of like really learning about who I am now. Um, and so I think that's a pain that like among queer friends, it's something I've talked to other people about a lot.
Mm.
It's a common experience, unfortunately. Um, and even like among like parents who are supposed like more progressive in a way, they feel like, or and sometimes express it, that they're mourning the loss of the child they thought they had, or the
Uh-huh.
future that they had envisioned for their child, and so they're mourning that kind of loss, which I can understand to some degree, but I think it's really painful for queer children to see their parents doing that
Mm.
because it's this kind of holding on to, again, a myth, like an illusion of the person in front of you instead
Mm.
of actually seeing them for who they are.
Right.
So the strawberry ice cream at the end of that poem kind of represents um, like this very childlike innocence
Yeah. Yeah.
that the parents are clinging to. And
Uh-huh.
they think like, oh, like why can't you still be that kid, like our little kid, who just liked strawberry flavored things.
Right.
That was it, you know?
Right.
Instead of like growing up and like having other interests and having my own life.
Hmm.
And it's like, oh, we could have a better relationship if like you were just more curious, even,
Hmm.
So that goes back to
Hmm.
like asking, right? Asking about the
Yeah.
boyfriend, asking
Yeah.
about the dog, asking about
Right.
life. Yeah.
More scallion pancakes, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. More I love yous, more scallion pancakes.
Yes.
There is, mortality, of course, comes into play for sure. I mean, there's some beautiful, moving, touching, sad, allusions to Pulse nightclub shooting, of
Yeah.
course. Putting yourself in the shoes in some ways of one of the victims, right? And asking questions. Um, Ruth Ann Johnson, would that be your partner's mother or grandmother?
Yes. Mother. Yeah.
And beautiful. I can't imagine the sadness associated with her being in the hospital, but the question being, is everyone here family? I assume,
Mhm.
right, that you were in the
Yeah.
room.
Yeah. I was
All
there.
right, is
Yeah.
everyone here family? And she looked you in the eye and said yes.
Hmm.
I can't imagine how beautiful and happy and
Yeah. It was
all
a
the
really
above.
powerful moment.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, wow. Um, a small book of questions comes up. There's what, 5 parts, 6 parts to that.
Yeah.
And the overriding question really is, how will you or have you prepared for your death? And I think I saw this posted on Twitter. Someone
Oh, yeah.
reposted this,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
right? It's what, I don't know, 30 times. I kiss him, I kiss him,
Yeah.
I kiss him.
Yeah.
And it's like, obviously that sentence by itself is beautiful, but that sentence 30 times,
Yeah.
that sentence in response to that question is off the
Thank
charts
you.
beautiful. But again, mortality, and then like your partner, your boyfriend's days with his now deceased mother, and and again, of course, pulse comes into play. There's also so much beauty. The Lunar New Year,
Mm,
right? The School of
yeah.
Night and Hyphens. There's an admiration for Jeff's work over the headset. You see him
Yeah,
through,
yeah.
yeah, right. You see him through others' eyes,
Hmm.
and I think that rings true for so many people. Like the person you love, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, you meet his coworkers, you meet her coworkers,
Right.
right? So what I'm trying to get at is that we could be speaking for 4 hours. I want to give you time to sleep, which you said sounds like you don't already do anyway, with all the crazy good work you do. But
And I
there's just
am quite a nocturnal person anyway.
okay, okay.
This is like actually my brain comes awake at this time
Oh,
anyway.
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting some great stuff, so that's I can see. But again, the collection, the latest collection, and I have here, those watching, if you're watching at home, is When I Grow Up, I Want to Be a List of Further Possibilities. It's a winner of the Poland Junior Poetry Prize and Emergency Contacts, which is out. I mean, there's so much. We could be talking for hours. I could teach a college course on one of your books. So thanks for just giving us even just
Yeah.
a little kernel of a seed of what's going on in your prodigious brain and with all the creativity. If you're up to it, totally up to you. If you wanted to lead us out by reading a poem, but I know it's late.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, I'll read The School of Fury since we
Nice.
talked about it. The School of Fury. As Robert Frost said, the best way out is always through. Or, as Alanis Morissette said, the only way out is through. Or, as I said, eighth grade was all Robert Frost and Alanis Morissette, because I had to learn who the important white people were. And we worship immigrant hardship instead of building a house more breathable, to read and remember and know and say so without the echo of an accent. When the white kids knew nothing about Marilyn Chin, when the white adults knew nothing about Lawson Fusawi Nada, when the 30-something white guy in poetry class says, a poem is this, based on what a 70-something white guy once said. And everyone just nods, and they want to say no and scream, and would Frost have called me a chink, and take everyone through the wound of it, through the cat with a hummingbird in its mouth, through my much desired, never fulfilled Halloween costume, which was the wheel from Wheel of Fortune. Through the night, my father came to pick me up from a friend's house, through the early fall sidewalk, through Newton, Massachusetts, outside Boston, inside whiteness, through my enjoyment of the West Wing with white friends, through my father knocking on the wrong door, the neighbor's door, through the neighbor's door, where you can hear them whispering, deciding to call the police, because who is the man at the door, calling in a strange voice? Through my father almost getting arrested for trying to retrieve his son. Through later in the car, my father insisting, you gave me the wrong address. Through don't ever give me the wrong address again. Through my imitations of Frost in eighth grade, which my teacher called impeccable. Throughout the town, on every doorstep except ours, a little family of carved pumpkins. Through the happy, happy wounds of their faces. Through why don't you try not going to the wrong house next time? Through hugging my white friends goodbye, yeah, see you in class, because nothing was wrong.
Ooh. Thank you so much. That last line, because nothing was wrong. Right? Such understatement. Such the Robert Frost was a Massachusetts poet. Am I correct?
Mhm.
Right. And of course, that line right there. I mean, you talk about the quote unquote canon. There's something about the 30-year-old white man talking about 70-year. I mean, that's kind of
Yeah, yeah.
sums everything else up, right? Because he said it was poetry is poetry. This
Yeah.
is what poetry is.
Mhm.
Wow. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, yeah, just like, yeah, who gets to be an authority on poetry, right?
It's
Like who
almost
gets
there.
to define it?
Right. It's almost there about
Um,
the inside and the outside, huh?
yeah, but that's like another exercise I love doing with students. Is just asking. everyone to try to write like a two-sentence definition of poetry. And
Hmm.
it's really fun because there's such different answers,
I bet.
and based on like reading experience, writing experience, like exposure to poetry in their lives,
Hmm.
how they come to it. Uh, and then ultimately becomes like a shared document of
Hmm.
all of these definitions, right? And so it's like no one person, has like there's no monopoly
Right.
on what
Right. Right.
what poetry is. Yeah.
I know you're talking metaphorically about a shared document or maybe, but shout out to Google Docs. If you want to
No, it is
advertise.
actually a
I love Google
literal
Docs so
Google
much.
Doc
I love Google
that
Docs so much.
we put
My
together.
God.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, based on what I read about, what you have coming out in the next year or two, things you see online, you're obviously, you continue to create. And I look forward to maybe talking to you in 2 years, 4 years when
Oh
you're,
yeah.
on
I'd be
collection number
happy
8 or
to.
10.
Yeah.
It's been such a pleasure. We said, Twitter's at Chen Chen Writes. Do you want to shout out any other, maybe bookstores to buy your work? Anything else on social media? Contact info?
Um, yeah, I mean, definitely you can get my book from my publisher, BOA Editions. That's a great way to support um a independent, mostly poetry, although they also publish fiction,
Okay.
press. You can get it from Writers and Books in
Mm.
Rochester. If you're here, I think you can also order online. They have a wonderful bookstore called Ampersand, which, of course, I appreciate the name of because I use it all the time. Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much. Like I said, it was just a pleasure to talk to you and, to get so much incredible insight. I'm sure that your students are very lucky.
Oh, I hope they feel that way. Yeah.
And, and continue great luck with your work. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you for the great questions and great conversation.